Welcome to the Tales Untold podcast with your host, me, and your co-host, Sarah.
And today we have an extremely special guest on the show, an expert in extraterrestrial life and UFOs, Greta VE.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for having me. Carissa is a huge inspiration for me, and I'm happy to be included in the podcast today.
So the big question today is, UFO or no? So Greta, you are a world-renowned expert in the topic of UFOs, or unidentified flying objects. Would you like to begin with anything specific?
Well, before we start diving deeper into this topic, I would like to begin with the obvious. Almost everybody, no matter where or no matter the culture, has heard of UFOs or has had their own unique sighting of them.
How interesting.
No matter if they believe it is true or not, we have all heard of it.
Oh my, that is such a true fact.
So, after that, is there anything else that you would like to start talking about? Maybe a good beginning would be to actually tell us about when the rumor of UFOs and things like that began.
Well, according to my research and according to Click on Detroit, the first alleged sighting actually happened here in the Midwest. It was 1897 in Alma, Michigan, and residents reportedly saw colorful flickering lights over Lake Michigan. A witness said they saw an object with bright lights and smaller lights on the sides, but around the same time the lights were seen over Lansing, it was revealed that they were just flying paper lanterns.
Oh my golly, that is quite cool.
Oh my, how astonishing that the first sighting happened here in the Midwest. Is there any other background information you would like us to know?
Yes, before we get on to more current issues, I'm going to talk about Area 51. Area 51 is known for its conspiracies of UFOs and spacecraft. According to Space.com, in 1989, a former scientist named Robert Laser claimed to have viewed alien photographs while working on Area 51, as well as working on extraterrestrial technology. He was later discredited for his claims.
That is very interesting information, Greta. Thank you. Now, so the reason that this podcast is happening is due to our podcast is based off of current issues. So this must have something to do with current issues and not just sightings from 1989. So 1989. And so if you would like to tell us the current happenings of UFOs, I would really appreciate that.
Of course. According to NBC, in 2024, the Pentagon released its annual report on UFO sightings. In total, there were 757 reported sightings. Apparently, only 485 of those reports happened within the current reporting period, and the rest were from previous years that had been excluded from earlier reports.
That is a lot of sightings, and I'm not surprised that some were excluded because the government. So is there anything else about that story that you would like to share?
Yes, actually. 444 of the cases lacked sufficient evidence, and the report said there weren't enough evidence to prove extraterrestrial life being involved in the sightings.
So, Greta, there was actually another thing that I saw very recently about this being a current issue. There was actually a Congress hearing, like the government's Congress, they had a hearing about unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, which is basically the same thing as UFOs, just happenings in general though, not just flying objects. So before that report that you just went back to was released, I heard that you went to the hearing and took some notes. So what would you like to tell us about UFOs or UAPs and the hearing from Congress?
So I heard that Congress had just finished their second hearing on UAPs and whether tax dollars are being used for AAP retrieval and research. A former Defense Department official said that the government had conducted UAP crash retrieval with the purpose of identifying alien spacecraft.
It's very interesting. Of course, the government's wasting our money on UPAs. Are there
Let's
any
not
other
get political here.
Are there any other aspects of the story you would like to share?
Yes. Luis Elizondo, the former Defense Department worker, said, quote, UAPs are real. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as some are of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race hidden from our elected representatives.
I heard about that, too. I also heard that Representative Robert Garcia asked 4 witnesses, quote, do you believe, just for the record, that the federal government, any part of the federal government, is knowingly concealing evidence about UPAs from the public? The 4 witnesses all replied with a yes. When asked what they think the UPAs might be, one witness, Tim Gallaudet, a retired Rear Admiral of the Navy, said, quote, strong evidence that they are non-human, higher intelligence.
That's really interesting. Maybe even indubitably interesting. So, Gertrude, is there anything that you would like to inform us on, maybe about different people's perspectives before we talk about our own perspectives on UFOs and UAPs?
Yes, according to Pew Research, men are more likely to believe in extraterrestrial life than women.
Yeah, I figure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing that I found from Pew Research was that white adults and college-educated students are more skeptical of military-reported UFOs.
I saw that too when I was doing a little bit of research. Along with that, I also saw that 87% of Americans, when they were asked about UFOs and national security, they said that UFOs were not a threat to our national security here in the U.S. 51% that it was a minor threat, and actually only 1 out of 10 people say that UFOs are a major threat.
That is very interesting. I found a biblical perspective, which is written in the book of Ezekiel. So in Ezekiel chapter 1, he writes about a creature with the appearance of man, but with 4 faces, and a wheel within a wheel. Some people have pointed to this account as the wheel within a wheel being a flying saucer, but Ezekiel writes how it's a vision from God and not an example of extraterrestrial life.
But, one thing I kind of thought of was like, if God gave it a vision, you never know if he's not. What if these UAPs are visions from God? So, you never know what he is trying to tell us. So, each of us now are going to share our own personal perspectives about unidentified flying objects. And I would like for our expert and our wonderful guest on the show, Gertrude Beege, to start telling us her perspective.
I believe UFOs aren't real because when people think they see one, it's usually something else, like a satellite, a meteor, a spy device from another country that resembles a UFO, or it's just paper lanterns. When we hear the term UFO, we often associate it with aliens, but aliens are fictional characters made up for movies and entertainment. The UFOs we imagine are based on science fiction, not real-life evidence.
So I think that that's interesting. However, one thing that I thought about was, when you were saying that, was you never know. There's billions of galaxies, and our galaxy is billions of light years wide. So you never know. Maybe there is an alien out there somewhere. Like, not like the aliens in cartoons, but like there's bacteria on the moon.
Okay, my perspective is UFOs are not real. For one thing, if they were real, wouldn't God have told us in the account of creation? Because they are supposedly a creation of God's.
He didn't tell us about dinosaurs either, and there's dinosaur skeletons.
Okay, Carissa, let me finish. Another reason I believe they're not real is because I feel like, yeah, you said there's all these galaxies and stuff, but like the planets we have seen, wouldn't we have been able to find them on those? Okay, and also most of the sightings end up being disproven anyway, so like, yeah.
So before the podcast started, one interesting thing that I heard Sarah say was there was actually bacteria found on a planet. I'm not sure if she said that it was in our galaxy or another galaxy. Do you recall?
I'm pretty sure I said Mars.
Mars, bacteria on Mars. That's not an alien, but it is other life. So you never know what is further out there because that's just Mars. So, my opinion, my greatest opinion, I'm kind of skeptical when it comes to UFOs. However, I also somewhat believe, like, not a lot. I'd say it's more like 75 to 25. There is so much area in space, like billions of galaxies, so many miles and miles and miles. So there's just so much, and we've only been to like Mars. So you never really know what's out there until you would see a UFO or an alien. And I feel like it's unlikely that these UFOs are aliens. They're probably, like what Greta said, asteroids or other flying objects like that. But perhaps somewhere out there there's aliens. Yeah. So, Greta, if you were, as an expert, we're going to summarize everything we've talked about today about UFOs to close this up, what would you say?
I would say that my first point would be that UFO sightings have been happening for hundreds of years and continue to this day. My second point would be that the government likes to hide stuff from the public, but recently has been sharing some of the information on UAPs. My third and final point would be that so many sightings have been disproven that the public doesn't know what's real and what's not.
I agree with those statements. Government doesn't. I feel like it's a good thing that the government's starting to share stuff.
Excuse me. Well, this was quite the episode of Tales Untold podcast with our wonderful, or maybe not wonderful, guest Greta. I haven't really decided which one it is yet, but we'll see what our viewers think of this, or our listeners. You know, maybe you listen to this while you're falling asleep. I get it. ASMR. Well, this is our last podcast episode for quite some time now, because actually, me and the wonderful co-host on my show are going to the Great Hawaiian Islands. And we're extremely grateful for all of our listeners and viewers out there because me and Sarah are poor. And you happen to be funding our wonderful and serene getaway.
Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I wish you would take me with you, so I might go with you guys.
No, because I heard that you burn really easily. And we can't have sun poisoning.
Okay, so yes,
So you're finishing
wine. Will be going to the Hawaiian Islands, and while we're there, I'm sure Carissa will be looking for UFOs. I won't, but she probably will. And if you do see one, make sure to call our expert at 714-467-8659.
And our expert will be happy to take any phone calls or texts. Leave her a voicemail if you can't reach her. She would absolutely love to help some people out with questions about UFOs.
This podcast was made possible by viewers like you. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.